Hello everyone, Through here. Welcome to today's presentation. So today's presentation, we are going to be looking at the API gateway. API gateway. This is something that is becoming very prominent in the application development space, and a lot of people are paying attention to it. So if you're not familiar with this, sooner or later you're going to come across an API gateway, and it's important that we know what exactly it is and what it's used for. So what is an API gateway? To dive into the API gateway, first of all, I'm going to assume that we know what an API is. So we have to understand what an API is. All right, I've already made some videos about an API. That simply stands for Application Programming Interface. That's basically what an API is. And a lot of application developers are leveraging APIs for their apps. So what then is an API gateway? All right, so we're going to be talking a lot about the gateway side of API. So assuming that you're doing some microservices architecture, and this is where it comes into play a lot, microservices. All right, so assuming that you're building some microservices architecture for your organization or for your app, at what point does it make sense to use an API gateway? And as we walk through that, I think we'll have a good understanding of what an API gateway is. So let's take, say, hypothetically, we're building an app for sales, right? We're building a store, and in that store, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a couple of services. We're gonna break that store and have a couple of services. So the very first service would be our browse service. So what this service browse? So this service would allow people to browse for items that they can buy. All right, and then we're gonna have another service here, which we'll call add to cart service. So this is a service that would allow people to add to cart and maintain items in the cart, and if they don't buy, we can notify them for drop cart and things like that. All right, and then we're gonna have another service here, which is pay. All right, or checkout. I'll just call it as pay service. So this will take care of the payment and working with all the payment interfaces that we need to work with. All right, so on the left side here, we have our individual. So this is you're coming through HTTPS. We know a lot of these microservices on the web are going through HTTPS. And you need to interact with my application that has a bunch of little microservices in there. All right, and I'm assuming we know what a microservice is. So you come in and you have to interact with my application. So the very first thing that you want to do is maybe browse my product. But there might be a problem, right? Because I don't want you to just come ahead and browse items without maybe, first of all, going through some form of authentication. So now I have a new service in here called authentication. So first you need to come in. I want to make sure you're authenticated before you go in and browse. All right. Next thing, if you want to pay or if you want to add items to cart, I need to go back and make sure you're authenticated before I allow you to do that. Okay, so let me draw a different diagram to see how this might look if we're kind of looking at it from a flow chart perspective. So let's see how this might flow here on the screen. So let's say we have our authorization service. I'm going to put that first. All right, and then we have the browse service to look at the products, and here we have our what other service? Add to cart ATC service, and we have our payment service. All right, so these are the three services, and this is the agent. This is the user somewhere here that is interacting with our services. So I'm just gonna do a very simple flow diagram here, or state diagram. All right, so you come in, and the very first thing we want you to do is to authenticate. All right, so what we're gonna do here is you come in. It makes sense that if you want to use this application, you need to authenticate. So you come in, the first interaction is you hit the authentication service. We know, all right, okay, we authenticate username, password, that this is John Doe, or this is Mary Smith, or whoever this is. Now, once you're authenticated, we confirm that, then we can allow you to go ahead, all right, and browse the product. Okay, because now you've authenticated, you can go ahead and browse products. But once you come into browse product, well, this product service has no idea of authentication because you can see these are independent services that we're looking at. So For all we know, how did you land on this page? We need to know who's browsing this product, and it might be relevant because you want to personalize that browsing to show you specific products based on your authentication. All right, so now this person could, I would have to go back from this browse service, maybe hit the authentication service to verify that, okay, are you authenticated before I allow you to browse. All right, so this is one step going back. And if that works, then I can allow you to browse. And let's say you've gone through this and then you need to hit the add to cart. All right, I'm gonna go from here again to add to cart. All right, same thing, add to cart service. We need to verify that, well, you're trying to add something to cart. Who are you? All right, let me go back and verify in the authentication service that you authenticated before we allow you to add something to the cart. All right, so we go back and we bounce to the authentication service. All right, and then last but not least, you might want to pay. I'm going to hit the payment service. The payment service goes back into the authentication service, and it checks that are you authenticated before it allows you to pay. All right, and you might even see this service maybe going back to the browse service to check that are you trying to pay for a product that exists within the browse catalog. And now you can see the lines just becoming more and more and more and more, and it could get really crazy and complex to manage very quickly. All right, and this is where this whole idea of an API gateway comes into play. So I'm going to reproduce this diagram again on this side, and we're going to have the same services auth here. All right, and we're going to have the browse, and then we're going to have our ATC, which is add to cart, and then we're going to have the payment service. All right, very similar to what we had before. But now in this case, instead of this this authorization service just being an ordinary service, we're going to put it as this is going to be deployed in a gateway. I'm going to make this really big so we can really see what's going on. Think about it like a wall. All right, so in this case now, I'm the user or the actor on this side. I come through, of course, HTTPS or HTTP, and I'm trying to browse. All right, now once I come into browse, I come in once. All right, I authenticate, and my authentication is verified. All right, I can have a token or I can have something to go with. Now once I'm authenticated, I can now use all the services. So I can go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to browse for products, and product is not going to question my authentication because it's already been vetted by my authentication service, and product just allows me to browse. No more need to go back and make a call to this other service. All right, because if I'm making it to this point, I have gone through the gateway. So think about this as a gate. That's really where the gateway comes into play. I've gone through that gateway, and the gateway, once, if you're visiting your friend and you pass through the gate and you make it into the compound, if you successfully, if they gave you the key to get through that gate and you made it through, I'm sure they would be okay if you go to the bedroom and if you go into the living room and such, right? If they don't want you to go to those rooms, they can put additional locks there. So kind of think about it that way. So in this case, the gateway is that gate, right? Literally, once you make it through, all right, in most cases, you don't have to go back for authentication there unless you have to. Now we can start talking about authorization and things like that, but that's going to be a whole separate video. So if I'm allowed to browse, I can browse. All right, if I want to add to cart, I can just go ahead and add to cart. If I want to pay, I could just go ahead and pay. All right, all within my applications without having to go back again. So that's really what an API gateway allows us to do. It allows us to gain authentication into a system which we can use without having to go back for authentication or for authorization again over and over. So an API gateway is an API management. So this is used for API management. It's an API management tool that sits between, right? It sits between a client. So whoever is coming in here, it might be a human actor, it might be another application. So it sits between a client and a collection of back-end services. So these are the back-end services that we'll gather using the API gateway. And it controls access, it controls access, statistics, and a lot of other functions that are performed by the API gateway once you have that installed. So it's not enough to just build an API. Most people now, when they build an API, they might want to put that API on the gateway. And there are many tools in the market that would provide gateway services. So Kong is one of them. I believe that's open source. You have, I believe you can use Nginx for that. Another big one from the Google guys, APIG. I know Microsoft has their own API gateway. AWS has an API gateway. Right, a lot of vendors out there have API gateways that allows you to deploy your API behind the gateway, and they can manage that for you. Some of the other functions that an API gateway might be used for is, let's say, for payment, right? Monetizing your API. I might build an API, and I thought about doing this for the app that I built. All right, I have this application. It's called Threelly. Let me just write it here. Threelly, just a little bit of a plug. So guys, check out this application. Threelly.com is a web extension for Google Chrome, right? You install it on the Chrome browser, and it allows you to index videos. So if you're watching any video within a Chrome browser on the PC, on the computer, you can use this extension from your Chrome browser to index that video and get some statistics and information about the video. Now, if I want to make it so that if one user comes in and I want them to be able to index a max of 5 videos per day, right? I want to ensure that each user or each session has a maximum of 5, can index a max of 5 videos per day. Now I can control that, all right? If I have it within a gateway, I don't have to control that within my application, okay? You can implement that within your application, but the gateway can also give you a lot of flexibility to implement that, because now in your gateway you can put in rules and put in certain things to say, all right, if a session is coming through, you have a session token or the session ID or the cookie or whatever way you use to identify that user or that session. You can then put a blocker against that, or you can put a cap against that and say, all right, okay, you've indexed 1 video, 2 videos, 3 videos, 4 videos. The next time, if you pass your max, now we can block you, right? The gateway can block you. Even if you try, you won't get through the gateway. So even if you try to go, browse or index a video, you can't even get through the gateway. This gateway services, Kong and APIG, would all manage that, all right? And it might even be that, okay, you might have to pay some more money or pay some money for you to get through the gateway, and you can set up all of those rules and all of those functionalities now within your API system. All right, so that's one thing, one of the functionalities. So let me actually write it down. So monetization will be one good use, right? Just monitoring of your APIs, right? Securing is another functionality. So we've talked about monetization as an option. You can monitor, right? This is pretty self-evident how that would work. So in this case, if I want to know, the volume or the usage of my API and how many people are making calls to my API, am I getting 1,000 calls a day, 5 calls or 1,000,000 calls? The API gateway can handle that for you. So you can use it as a monitoring service, and you can even go into DevOps, and I'm going to mention DevOps here as well, where because you have the API gateway becoming the entry point into your application ecosystems or into your microservices behind the scenes, you can now use it almost like a load balancing, all right? So you can say, all right, when my users are coming in, they hit the API gateway or the endpoint for that gateway, and now the gateway can load balance it and say, well, if that call coming from the US, I can send it to some microservices for the US. If it's coming from, say, Europe, I can send it to a different set of microservices from Europe. And behind the scenes, you don't have to worry about that. The API gateway, you can set up the rules in there to do all that forwarding and the load balancing and the sharing and all of that. The API gateway will take care of you, or take care of it for that, right? So I kind of put it as DevOps. I know some people will not agree that it's called DevOps, right? Because DevOps really means development and operations, but the operation piece is what I'm referring to when I put that functionality as part of DevOps for the API gateway is being used for. So there are many more uses, right, that you can use to maintain your services You can throw in service discovery and a lot of things that you can build into your gateway. Let me actually write that down. Service discovery. All right. So if I'm working for an organization, I don't know what services we have. In here, I just have 1, 2, 3 services that I'm using as an example. But what if your organization in the microservices world has hundreds or thousands of services, right? The little microservices. How do I know that there is an add to cart service as a user, so I don't go out recreating that service by myself, right? There needs to be a way for me to have to do service discovery for that. And so you can publish that if all your APIs are published and maintained through the gateway with a nice documentation and catalog, users can kind of come in there and see some of those services, requests for access and things like that to use it. So it kind of helps with service discovery and some form of the DevOps. All right, guys. So I hope this was helpful in terms of understanding what an API gateway is. It's really of functionality or a concept to help provide more robustness into this world of microservices. Microservices says you want to break down functionality in a code into a lot of tiny, self-independent, deployable services. And once you have those services, a lot of them, you kind of need someone to control that. All right, and the gateway is really that functionality for it. Now, once you get a gateway, whether you're using Kong or APIG or any one of these gateways, it does come with a lot of functionalities that you can use for monitoring, monetization, securing, and scalability. If you want to upgrade your application but you don't want any downtime, you can kind of manage that load balancer within your gateway and things like that. All right, so next time you hear about an API gateway, hopefully now we have some rough idea of what it is. It's just a gateway for APIs. I think I made a video already about what an API is, so this is just building up on that. All right, this is Thru. Thanks for joining us for this lecture today. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions around API gateway, don't hesitate to go into the comment section below. Let me know. If there are any topics you want me to make a video about, any concepts, you're more than welcome to jump into the comment section below. Let me know and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.